Hey, I'm Brad, and welcome back to you and my perpetually disappearing ass to Overkill Reviews. I almost forgot the title of our review show. Great start. BangerTV's weekly metal review show. So as far as personal updates, you already know I've been managing bands. I've been really busy, not really appearing on camera too much. So it takes a very special album to get me out of review retirement. This week, I am reviewing one of modern death metal, modern metal period's most important band's newest release. That's right, baby. It's the new album from the Black Dahlia Murder called Servitude, out today on Metal Blade Records. Wow, is it wild to say that? And though everyone watching this review probably knows why, I'm going to talk about this in like a combination biography obituary to really contextualize this album. So on May 11th, 2022, Black Dahlia Murder vocalist Trevor Strnad died by suicide. I remember reading the Decibel cover story they did, I think about 4 months after that. And the story talked about how everybody remembers where they were when tragedy struck. I don't exactly remember what I was doing at the time when I found out. I was no doubt in my bedroom office working on stuff. But what I do remember is just, laying in bed, despondent after finding out today's not going to be productive. I'm sure there were tears, potentially at that point, definitely later. I really remember it not feeling real. I had a meeting with a band that I manage later, and the most, I'd say, visceral reaction or memory I have from this is finding it very difficult to get my thoughts together to make complete sentences. And I think I said to them, I can't talk, guys. I have to go. I would say that was almost the moment where it felt like it hit me, but, and then I cried and, didn't do too much work for the rest of the day. But even then, I remember when I was in Detroit, I was there for his memorial, and I was like, oh, I'm in Michigan. Maybe I should text Trevor and see if he's around. Like, what? I was there because he wasn't. Long personal aside to kind of contextualize, I guess, my relationship with the band, my relationship with Trevor, and why this album is important both to me and metal as a whole. Long-term viewers of the channel will know that I am the Black Dahlia Murder guy around here, and through years of covering them here and for other publications, I got to know some of the guys. And that's why when I was asked if I wanted to review this, I said, yeah, but it's not going to be wholly unbiased. The last full conversation I had with Trevor actually was related to Banger. I distinctly remember walking home. I had filmed something, and I had some questions about some bands and metal-related stuff that I needed to run by someone, get their feedback. And who better than, metal's champion of the underground. So I called Trevor. We talked about that. We shot the shit about all things metal, and then eventually kind of caught up on our personal lives. Essentially, we're being cheerleaders for one another at that time. They had a massive tour coming up with Parkway Drive, for which they were so excited, and I was excited for and proud of Trevor and the boys. And my management career was doing well. And we were just, we got off the phone, and that was that. It's one of those things where if you had, known it was your last full proper conversation with someone, how would you have done it differently? What would you have said? That's, I guess, a question probably everybody lives with. But fortunately, in the case of Trevor and Black Dahlia Murder, we have 9 albums and a whole career of him fronting the band. Check out an amazing transition from personal to biography. Since forming in Michigan in 2001 with the constant duo of Trevor and guitarist, now turned vocalist, Brian Eschbach, they came out with plenty of melodic death metal riffing and this goofy attitude that wasn't so much in line with the super serious death metal guy aesthetic. They're kind of an anomaly in that. So a lot of, I think, true metal folks kind of associated them, even though they didn't sound so much like it, with some of the more core leaning bands with whom they toured. But rather than give in to these people, they continued to be themselves in the 2 decades plus since. They were goofy, they wrote the music they wanted, they championed the bands that they liked. And I think this is why they're such an important band for metal as a whole. It was kind of a way to attract people into this more extreme underground because they were so welcoming on the surface with their personalities and catchy riffs. And I think that that's why they're so important, and them continuing here is so important. Trevor Strnad. And I know it's weird to start a review with the name of someone who's not on the album. His DNA is all over Servitude, and it's all the better for it. Brian lyrically continues Trevor's time-honored storytelling with each track kind of this mini world telling a tale that would make, the Crypt Keeper proud. And though Brian's words are perhaps less thesaur-ish than Trevor's robust vocabulary, some of the phrasings, when you're doing lyrics, not every word is a full sentence. Sometimes you have to take artistic license, and the way he delivers them feels like Trevor and retains his spirit while being its own thing as well. In short, it feels familiar, and that's exactly what the metal community needed. Perhaps somewhat paradoxically, this love engendered a world in which the band can continue without him, because everybody wants to see his life honored and his work spread and celebrated. And they've thrived since with, many successful tours, and now here in album. It also, no doubt, pushed the band to work just that little bit harder to make sure that Servitude was the best it could be. They have quite the legacy to uphold, even just themselves as proficient musicians, but the added gravita, I don't know how to say that word, of one of your brothers no longer being here. And that is no more prominent than in Brian's vocals. He's taking over quite the mantle here, and it is amazing how much some of his screams sound like Trevor on their early material, from the raspy highs to these lows that are almost more bellows than gutturals. It brings a sense of comfort to the album. The longest assembled partnership on this album is not made up of Eschbach and Brandon Ellis, now broken up as a guitar duo as Eschbach moves to the mic, nor is it Eschbach and returning shredder Ryan Knight. No, the dynamic duo is bassist Max Lavelle and drummer Alan Cassidy, who have been laying down thunderous rhythms for more than half the band's career. I think about 12 years now. And perhaps it's because everything is so under the microscope on this album, but goddamn, did they lay down this like beefy bedrock upon which the trio of guitar players that wrote here can craft some insanely catchy melodies, with Exhibit A coming right off the rip, track 1, Evening Ephemeral. The way the drums and cymbals interplay and create this ominous atmosphere really allows the bass to shine when everything drops out and it is much more prominent at the top. And the subsequent build is just masterful. When the song transitions from, I guess, the opening to the explosion, the more spacey percussion and cymbals make way for some quick snare bursts, and then, of course, the addition of the bass drum. Then when the song really, really hits, there's the decapitated-esque dun, 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 which reminds me of one of my favorite Black Dahlia tracks, Malenchantments of the Necrosphere. And then, of course, there's a blast. I'd put the clip here again for you, but a rewind button exists, and I know I certainly abused my rewind button while writing my notes for this part of the review. So rewind, check it out. You'll know what I mean. It continues Black Dahlia Murder's insane streak of amazing opening tracks. Another trademark of the Black Dahlia Murder's discography is having a banging title track, and that is a great segue to this point. That having 3 main guitar writers on this album, unsurprisingly, opens doors, but surprisingly, not always in the way you'd expect it to. The album's title track is Thrashing Madness, and it's kind of surprising coming from their neoclassical riffer, Brandon Ellis, whose progressive melodies on the last 2 albums have really capitalized the M in melodic death metal. There's another rager, the clip played earlier, the lead single from this, Aftermath. Though its blazing ferocity brings to mind the band's 4th album, Deflorate, in how unrelenting it is, there's a part in the chorus that reminds me of that album's denounced disgrace. And though Deflorate was Ryan Knight's debut with the band, and again, he's returning here, this song was written by Brian Eschbach, and it wasn't even written recently. From consuming interviews, I understand that it's actually an older song that he's bringing here, so it's not like he brought it out here to, as a tip of the hat to Ryan's early career with the band. It's just something that came out. A lot of this album has this honest, natural expression, despite the fact that I know from, consuming interviews and whatnot, that they are very methodical. To go with the third writer here, one of Ryan Knight's contributions is called Mammoth's Hand, and it was written prior for another project. In an interview, he says he thinks it might be their slowest song in their discography. The only one that I can really find that maybe rivals it in terms of lower speed is Stygiophobic. I don't know how to count BPMs, so we're just going off of feel. So those are two of the slower ones. In a bizarre way, Warborn feels more upbeat despite the fact that it's slow. And then a track like Into the Everblack feels plodding, but the opening riff is trems and double bass. My aside, that song, Mammoth's Hand, works. And the sequencing is masterful between the title track and Transcosmic Blueprint, which is another fast, typical melodic death metal Black Dahlia Murder track. All of which is to say the songwriting is diverse and not always what you'd expect coming from each of the respective writers. Not only do they have 3 guitarists writing on this album, but they have 2 lead guitarists playing the parts on the album. And you can hear it, especially if you're listening on headphones. Again, I consume a lot of interviews. Before I do these reviews, I like to understand as much of the picture of the album as I can. And I know from that the entire left channel is Brandon Ellis, the entire right channel is Ryan Knight. So even when they're playing, a harmony, the same riff, lead, they each have a slightly different feel, but equally masterful. These guys are amazing at vibrato, amazing at bringing their guitar to life. And that's just the riffs and the leads. The solos, my God, the solos especially feel alive, and at points with the vibrato weeping, as in on Aftermath. I've already played it. You've probably already heard it. Go check it out again. Or on their latest single / the focus track, the new music video when the album comes out, Panic Hysteric. On the other hand, the solo of Servitude actually kind of reminds me a bit of John Kay's work on the first 3 albums. This album really does feel like an encapsulation of the 9 that came before it, and consequently of Trevor's life and output. I mean, hell, the start of Panic Hysteric kind of comes in vocals and then the riffing hits. Reminds me of Moonlight Equilibrium off of Ritual. On Ritual, it was A Shrine to Madness. On this one, it's Evening Ephemeral, and they both have like a slow intro build. In this case, it's Waves, Water. It's quite somber. And both albums end, with a denouement, if you will, in this time returning to the water, to the somber waves. It feels like a parallel to arguably my favorite Black Dahlia Murder album. To me, at least, feels like a Viking funeral for our dear departed Trevor Strnad. May he rest in peace. And just because I want to, I got to bring up a couple more tracks here that I just have something I want to say about. We have Transcosmic Black and we have Asserting Dominion. Asserting has this swing to its chorus riff that sets it apart. And Transcosmic Black in its chorus, again, has that weeping feeling, but in like an oddly triumphant way. The way they double up the chorus at the end, but with like this red herring misnomer in the middle, where it feels for a second like it's the ending of the chorus from earlier in the song, but they're like, nah, we're bringing it back around again. It's a surprise, and it's just fun songwriting. It's awesome.
Some
So to wrap this all up, and I feel I've lost some of my ability for brevity in the months since I've not done these reviews, but in lead single Aftermath, Brian, or the characters he wrote, wrestle with themselves in the wake of a catastrophic asteroid obliterating most human life. The line is, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, fooling ourselves for how much longer?" It seems as much a part of the band's storytelling as it does him grappling with a post-Trevor Black Dahlia murder. The loss of Trevor will never result in the band being stronger. He is irreplaceable as a lyricist, as a vocalist, as a champion of the underground. On Servitude, the band go from strength to strength by keeping it in the family, bringing, Ryan Knight back in and Brian going to vocals, and expanding to a trio of main writers. The album is as varied as it is a dead ringer for the Black Dahlia Murder we know and love, and in doing so, it delivers exactly what fans of the band's or the band's iterations throughout the years would want. And though the remaining post-apocalyptic humans of Aftermath fuel their confusion as to the stronger or not question with the blood of their fellow human. They're, spoiler alert, they're cannibals. The band who wrote that song and the album Servitude are fueled by, I would say, love, passion, and a bit of catharsis. They're indeed indebted to death metal and serve it as loyally as they can. But it certainly doesn't feel like self-cannibalization, as this, bloated metaphor I have going on here would suggest. Instead, it's more of they picked up a Necronomicon-esque cookbook Trevor left them from which to draw inspiration. It's really an incredible encapsulation, although if there were a little bit of cannibalism, I'm sure Trevor would graciously grant his permission to add some of his skin to this splattery stew. I don't know why I did that. I'm beyond excited to hear where the band go from here as they continue to grow into this new lineup. It's incredible that this album exists and is as solid as it is through and through, with the band working through grief and finding their footing to make it. I'm going to give this album 4 to 5 skulls on Overkill Reviews. But you let me know what you think in the comments. But before you go down to the comments, don't scroll down yet. We've got shout out time. Out October 4th, 2024, we have the new album from Undeath called More Insane, out on Prosthetic Records. Undeath toured with Black Dahlia on their last tour with Trevor. And though Undeath's music is less indebted to melodeath, the genre, it somehow feels similarly melodic and inviting to those who need to, be slyly led into death metal. Out October 11th on Century Media Records is the new one from Vomit Forth called Terrified of God. There's another band who is going to tour with Black Dahlia on their upcoming North American co-headliner with Dying Fetus. They really make sense on this lineup. They have a modern take on brutality, not, quite brutal death metal traditionalism, but more in the way that MySpace era early deathcore bands usurped that subgenre's traditions and made it their own. Although this isn't exactly deathcore either, but it is a lot of fun. And you should also go see them live because Kane, the vocalist, has unmatched stage banter. Another one from Metal Blade Records, out that same day, October 11th, is The Crown's latest, Crown of Thorns. This new album from Sweden's most ferocious mellow death band is actually named after their original moniker. They were originally called Crown of Thorns. It also marks the return of guitarist Marcus Sunesson, I hope I said that right, who played on the band's penultimate releases, Death Race King and Crowned in Terror. the latter of which actually had Thomas Lindberg from At the Gates on vocals. This band is just a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more thrashy, a little bit more extreme than your average Swedish mellow death band, and it's going to rip. And in honor of Trevor's eternal search for underground gems, I have to shout out one of my recent favorites, Piss Shitter, all one word, whose most recent EP, Human Toilet Garbage Piss, has swallowed my whole 2024. For those who like their gore grind extra gross, i.e. covered in brutal death metals, dehydrated, rancid piss, and shit, I guess, this comes with appropriately guttural toilet vocals that sound like they're gurgling diarrhea or whatever stew has been made by someone's body, and comes with a sense of humor. And I don't know if all those words I just said are going to get this video blocked by YouTube, but you should listen to this album really quickly just in case. I don't know how long it's going to be until I'm filming another one of these videos. Hopefully not as long as the last time, but I'm pretty sure I said that last time, so no promises. I hope to see you watching, commenting next time I return. Thank you for your attention and love always. Have a good day. Rest in peace, Trevor.